Welcome to our first edition of A View from the Top. This is a regular feature from the Centre for Strategic Communication Excellence, and we're hosting interviews with some of the world's leading communication professionals as we explore their career journey, where they've come from and what it is that they're doing now. And today I am so pleased to be talking with Per Zetterquist, and our paths have crossed over many, many years, and we do have a background together working in Ericsson, which seems a century ago, but as you realise, it's not. So Per has had an extensive experience in working with leadership communication, and particularly working in HR-related matters in dynamic global environments. He was in his role as the VP for internal communication in Ericsson between 2002 and 2006, and did a similar role in Electrolux between 2011 and 2017. His experience is quite wide and quite varied, but he's one of the top people in our profession of internal communications. So Per, it's great to be talking with you today, and thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and I'm honored and a little bit flattered by that fancy introduction.
I could potentially go on forever talking about the things that you've been involved with, but then, you know, I won't leave anything for you to talk about. So I thought I'd just kind of gently lead in there and then talk about, you know, where did you come from? What was your background? So how did you first get started in the communication profession? What drove you into communication or internal communication specifically?
Well, I think I happen to have a law degree, and I have a master's degree in marketing and communication on top of that. But I think more than anything else, it was my curiosity and interest in people. And the more I worked with it, also the opportunity to make a difference in people's life. But curiosity is probably the main lead here.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that curiosity, and you look at that certainly within people within our profession, is we tend to have that curiosity to how people tick, what's happening within organizations, the dynamic within organizations. So I can see how it works from law into communication. I thought it was a big stretch to begin with, but I think you've got it.
Well, it also helped me to get a rather well-structured mindset and a good overall understanding on how things are working in society at large.
I think that's probably why you excelled in Ericsson in those early days as well, because I do remember it was really about stepping in there and building a strategy for the organization, internal comms, and you had to manage a global function in internal comms. So that was quite big. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. So thinking about that, what were some of the jobs that you did, and how did they progress your career? Because sometimes we fall into certain jobs and we go, now how do I end up doing this? And it ends up being the right move at the right time for some uncanny reason. And other times it's quite planned. Maybe it was planned because you've got that background of being a bit more structured.
Right. But it's a good question, and thinking of it, I think there are two answers to it, at least for me. First one is that I had the opportunity to be in the heat, the real heat for some time, because I was working in parts of Ericsson at that time that were dealing with the fixed telephony compared to the mobile phone and the mobile system sales, and it was a bleeding business. Tough with the profitability and everything you can think of. So we had to be laying off a lot of people, closing sites down, etc., etc. And with that, it really took communication into what matters to the business. So to dealing with people and managing layoffs and managing people's emotions and being sort of both very straight about things, but also working with a big heart and a lot of empathy, put internal comms in the spotlight. And if there's any advice to others from that, is to go where the heat is. It really made a change in my career. It went from internal communication being something nice to being something which is essential. So that's my number one thing. My number two thing, and this is still with Ericsson, I was lucky to have the opportunity to work with, at that time, the CEO of that time that came in at 2002, when at the same time as I entered into the company as Vice President Internal Comms. And his assignment was to make a true turnaround when it came to how to run the business, the culture of the business, and values, etc. And he started off with his own management team, and for some reason he took trust in me, and we had a great relationship, and it was just fantastic to be working with a person like that put such emphasis on the value of communication and also such trust to the function of communication.
What were some of the tips? And thinking about that, because trust is so important, particularly when you're working with the head of an organization, and a global CEO is stretched quite widely in an organization. So to gain that trust and that credibility, what were some of the things you felt were important to do?
Well, I think it's the usual thing. Be very careful with what expectations you build or you set. And I don't know whether we were good at this, but general advice would always be under promise and over deliver. But also, I think seriously, I think we did a good job. And also one thing to add to this, I was reporting into the head of communication, senior vice president communication in Ericsson at that time. And he was a very wise guy. He was standing beside me, and he was not standing between me and the CEO. And that, I think that to the CEO showed the full trust that my boss was putting to me, was giving me, and that sort of transmitted over to the CEO. So I think that was also part of the success story here. No one standing in between me and the CEO in those matters.
Yeah, it seems that really important not to have some of that political maneuvering, which you sometimes get in large organizations and particularly with senior people. So it's that trust obviously is that underpinning thing, and I think that's really important. So thanks for sharing that with.
Yeah, I should say I have a little bit of background in politics as well. So I think I was rather sort of experienced and a little bit street smart in how to play the games.
I think that doesn't it? I quite often give advice in training courses with internal communications folk is maybe you need to learn a little bit of the politics sometimes. It might help.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other lessons you might share with communication professionals about how you demonstrate that value within the organization?
Again, I'm coming back to this thing about be where it matters. I really think that's the key here. It also opened up doors to other functions. And when you start to interact with other functions, that's when you can truly deliver value and you're appreciated for the value. And in the case of Ericsson, starting off, I think it was comms and HR, not involved in battles, but for sure having various opinions on things. But going through the tough times and having to work side by side with another function, build mutual trust, respect, and at the end of the day, joint deliverables or joint deliveries. And that's really something I would sort of. It comes to my mind when you put the question.
Yeah, no, I think it is, because it's that share and success rather than having the battles. And if we think about the energy of having those battles, and we've all had them. I mean, organizations that many people have talked to me about is some of those battles between internal comms, HR. But I think when you get that right and you actually have that share of success with that delivery for employees, I think it's a real sweet spot.
Yeah. So, and then if I could add another thing, Adrian, and maybe you're coming to it yourself, but I think what we did at Ericsson was starting the journey of shifting the deliverables and the mindset and the expectation on the function. Because we all know communication can be a lot about packaging and distribution, and that will never go away. But the journey we started on in Ericsson at that time was to make the move from being in that corner and doing the distribution and the production of things to move into the field of the business partner, the consultant to the business rather than the service function. And that's something I know made a shift, and it has followed me throughout my career since, having that mindset. Internal comms is about being a business partner.
Yeah, it does make me smile when you say consultant and business partner. I think that really is the key. We hear about it in what people talk about, but are people truly doing that? And I think certainly the work you do working with organizations, I'm sure that's a lot about what you talk about and try and encourage internal communication professionals to be. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what are you doing now? I mean, what great background career. You've had that experience working at the top within organizations. But tell me a little bit about what you're doing now and what is it that you're passionate about?
Okay, well, I'm a lucky guy now. I'm not any longer with any of the big global corporations. I love that time, and I might be back there at some point. But right now, I work as a consultant and senior advisor in the field of communication, leadership, and change management. I just recently had my diploma in coaching. I did a change management certification. I've also been involved in something called Art of Hosting. So it's a lot about facilitating processes and people, and taking that a little bit further than you're allowed to when you're heading up a function labeled internal comms. And what really catches my mind and interest right now is how we can combine. What can we learn from neuroscience? And there's a lot coming that way now. And many of you already probably work and are familiar with the SCARF model, etc. But if we can start to combine the skills and experience we have from our work in communication to what's happening now and what can be learned from neuroscience, I think we can make big strides and combine things that has never happened before, and that at the end of the day that would provide a lot of new and unexpected value. It would truly take our function from being in the distribution field to be in the influencer field for real. So I think that's an exciting area to look into.
And I love to hear that you're talking about being in the influencer field, because we've seen quite a bit of research coming out lately around how important it is going to be in this era to be much more influential in our skills. We're no longer selling to people. And I remember many years ago, one of the uncomfortable conversations I had with a marketer was, what's internal comms? Isn't that just selling to your internal audiences? And I nearly fell off my chair. And I think it's coming into its own now with the fact that we really are about connection and people and being able to influence at a much more personal level. Do you think some of the things that's driven that is, we talk about trust in today's society and the degradation of trust over recent years, as now this is why people want a little bit more connection?
Yeah, but yes, I would say so. And we all know how long it takes to build trust and how easily it erases. So I think more and more, and in today's world with a very concerned young generation growing up as consumers, as stepping into work life, we have social media, etc. This transparency, it has always been important with trust, but I think trust is now it's a business critical asset, and it's more than ever. So and trust, that building that trust starts at home within the organization.
And that's it's such a key role for internal communication professionals these days. I think that's brilliant. I love the area you're now starting to focus in. There's a couple of things I picked up in there, Per, as well, is that you still have gone back and you have done some training and you've got additional qualifications. How important do you think that is for internal communication professionals, right throughout their career? There's often the thought of get your degree and then forget it for the rest of your life. How important is ongoing education?
I think it's critical. I'm looking at myself with my law degree. I think it helped me a little bit, but on the surface, or if you think of it, had very little to do with internal comms. But being relevant and staying ahead of the game will always take a curious mindset and a willingness to learn and adopt, and preferably be a little bit ahead of others. And if there was any piece of advice I would give to people in this profession today, it would be to start looking into neuroscience, look into psychology, behavioral science. I wish I had a little bit of that in my academic background, to be honest. It is possible to pick up quite a bit of it as you move along, but having that in your DNA stepping into this profession I think will help a lot.
Excellent. That's great. And I it feels a little bit like that crystal ball moment where the recommendation for internal communication professionals moving on is really start focusing in on getting some development around areas like neuroscience. And is there any other advice and we'll call this our last parting words of advice from our sage guru on internal communication? See, I'm going to talk you right up now, Per. But what other advice would you share with internal communication professionals in navigating their career, and really what should they be focusing on now?
I think they should look for whether they work for non-profits or governmental affairs in the public sector or for a private company. I think it's critical to look for, identify what is business critical, and for that you need to know the business environment, you need to know the strategy of the company or the organization you work for, and you need to be fully aware of the culture and those things, and make sure that that's where you're spending your time, and focus not on the urgent things in the organization, but look at the important things of the organization, and make sure that you have the access and the access and the permission, and that permission comes through building trust to deal with those matters. It will make your career much more successful, and I think you will have a lot more fun as a professional, because you will be regarded as a business advisor and a change maker, and that's where you want to be.
Fantastic. Yeah, I could not agree more. And Per, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for catching up today. Not only has it been great for me to catch up with you again, as I've known you for many years, but thank you for sharing your advice to communication professionals, particularly those working in internal communication. So valuable advice from a highly qualified professional in our profession. So thank you again for your time, Per.
Well, thank you for having me, and good luck to all of you out there. Good luck.
Thanks, Per. So thank you for watching today's episode of A View from the Top with Per Zetterquist. And we will be having regular episodes of this. If you're looking for any research articles or insights on your career in communication, please check out our website. It's cropleycoms.com.au. So please go to our website, find out any information that you want, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.